You're listening to Left Up the Valley 2.0, Atheist, Skeptic, and Humanist Radio.
All right, our returning champion is one half of the Godless Mom and the coordinator for CORT 2022. She's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer, Janice Selbie. Welcome back to the show.
Yay! Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
God, I'm always wrong with my applause.
Yeah, just
There it
do
is.
it after.
Yay! Woo!
That's
Ooh, yay.
better.
That's better.
Delayed,
I'll do it
you know,
for you.
reaction.
Woo! Yay! I
You're
am
so in
clapping.
awe.
Listen to me clap. See, I did it. Solved the problem.
Janice, welcome back to the show. We're really glad to have you again on the show. It's always a pleasure. For those that missed you maybe the first time around, last time you were on the show, maybe you'd be so kind to give us a quick bio as to who Janice Selbie is.
Sure. Yes, I grew up in a Pentecostal home in British Columbia in Canada, and I was a firm believer. I wasn't really raised with a choice about believing, so I did believe the Bible was the literal truth of God and God's existence and humanity, believed in a young earth, believed in virgin birth, all that kind of stuff. And then I married an equally religious person, and he became a pastor. And at that point, I became extra fundamentalist. Like, my original fundamentalism was not holy enough. So I really had to get very holy. So I started wearing a head covering and no TV and no makeup, no fun. And homeschooled our children and was really quite uptight for several years. And until eventually, unfortunately, there was a series of crises and calamities that hit our family just over and over again in a short span of time. And it really made me realize, I don't think if there is a God up there, he's either not seeing what's going on or he doesn't care about what's going on. And I don't want to be involved in any kind of religion that would worship a God like that. So then I did a big dive into the New Age community and got to explore all sorts of things formerly forbidden to me until I eventually recognized that there was a lot of dogma in that community too. And I was like, hey, guess what? I don't need any of this. And I've been a happy heathen atheist ever since.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Eventually, you found your way out of the bottom of the barrel. You came on our show. Then, nothing was going up at that point.
That's
now
right.
you have your own show called Godless Moms.
The Godless Moms podcast, yes, and it's a show about secular parenting. So my my co-host is the lovely Courtney Hurd. She's the original Godless Mom all over social media, and she was raised in a pretty atheist kind of home. They didn't do any religious stuff, which to me is just shocking. And then I come in with the alternate experience of having grown up in a very religious home and then being even more religious when I was parenting. And so I see some of the inherent toxicity and dangers and sorrow that can really be a part of religious training and religious parenting. And so we just try and talk about things to make parenting easier in a secular style. It's been really good for me. It's been quite refreshing interacting with Courtney.
Yeah, it must have been almost therapeutic as well. But when you look at your audience, and I'm sure you got some viewers that come and ask you questions about parenting in a secular way, what's the one thing that really comes up a lot?
Probably questions about morality. So people might join in our podcast, like be watching us from what if some of them are still religious, some of them are just exiting religion, and it has very much to do with the religious identity and religious values. And of course, they would call it morality. I never use that word with my own clients. I'm a therapist. I work with people recovering from religious trauma. So I would instead use words like ethics and values. And so at any rate, people are wondering, well, where do you get your morality from if you're not following the Bible and all that kind of stuff? So yeah, that's a really common question.
That's very interesting. I find from a male perspective that women really, when it comes to religion, have like a really raw deal, because it seems in this society women have been given unofficially the role of guardians of tradition, and a lot of women will turn to religion, a religion which is, let's face it, is when you talk about the Abrahamic religion, not pro women at all. Work very strongly against them. Yet they are the ones spreading it onto their children. So it's
Mhm.
almost like the victim victimizing the next generation at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of promises made as far as religion. All humans really crave certainty, security, and order, and particularly in these uncertain times in which we're living. And religion promises those things in spades. And so it makes sense for women who already feel unsupported by society or in their marriage or whatever's going on. And so they tend to really reach out and want to connect. And religious communities are very cult-like, and they will love bomb people and really make you feel very important and significant and like you matter. And so that can be hard to we don't have a substitute for that. It's even when I'm talking with people who have left religion and they're saying, well, where do you find your hope now? It is very different as an atheist. I felt really safe and secure and warm and fuzzy and all my community when I was very religious. And then it was a stark reality when I lost my faith and I didn't have the fluffy promises or beliefs in afterlife or any of that stuff. It was really an existential crisis that I had to walk through. And I became a counselor at that time, did my schooling, and started to learn about my own religious trauma.
Well, and you
It
like
kind of,
lose a lot of your support group when you leave too, right? Like I know this
Oh, yeah.
especially because from my perspective, I was raised Mormon,
Mm,
and my partner was raised Mormon also, and
yeah.
so for her, from her perspective, it's the church is set up in such a way that if you leave, you lose all of your support group, you lose all of your
yes.
friends.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was mentioning just before I came on here with you guys that I had just participated in another interview this morning with a group that has left the Amish tradition, the Amish religion, and they are absolutely shunned when they leave. And
Yep.
so everybody that they knew who was their support, it's all cut off. It's like if you're picked up and plunk down into a totally foreign country and you don't speak the language, nobody speaks your language, and you have no idea how to get resources. In some of the religious communities, the education is quite limited, and so then they're in this totally strange world where people will take advantage of vulnerable people, and they really need help. And so it can be quite difficult to find community and build community outside of religion.
And it's probably a wise thing that you talk to the Amish before talking to us because you might need some trauma counseling after this show, and it would not be a good thing to be talking to the Amish after us.
I bet they talk about dicks less than we do too.
Just a tiny bit.
Well, no. Well, I mean, a lot of people, of course, like myself, once they leave a very kind of repressive religious situation, boy, it's just like that corset was bound too tight, that thing's going to come flinging off. Everything's going to come out. Or I talk about holding that beach ball underwater for too long and the pressure just builds up. And that's what it's like for a lot of us when we leave some of those groups. And we do definitely dive into the many delights that life has to offer.
We like the corset edge. We really like that. I want to encourage our co-hosts, Hertzie and Sabrina, since we're talking about Godless Mom and from a female perspective, I want to give you guys priority if you have questions to ask of Janice.
Don't worry, I'll interrupt
Okay,
if I need
perfect.
to.
I don't want
But,
Nice.
but Kevin, there's
The
not
point
enough
is, you guys
male
are allowed
voices.
to talk. That's the
Oh,
The
good.
male
Takeaway.
perspective doesn't have a place. Come on, we need it, Kevin. Why would you do this
I
to
know,
us?
right? I mean, if
We
only
need
there
some
was a-
mansplaining here.
Exactly.
if only there was a
How
place
else
in the
can you be
world where
explained to
man
if it's
could
not
express himself, right?
mansplained?
I know. I mean, we're so repressed. All these white men out there that can't speak anything. Jeez.
Right. Terrible.
well, right? The most repressed.
Kevin denies ever mansplaining, but I have proof. It was voted on, and it was confirmed that he mansplained me.
I don't have
okay,
to
that's
those
He
wild
doesn't
Yeah,
know
allegations.
about
I don't
me,
have to
so-
listen to those wild allegations.
I thought you would say I resemble that remark.
So Janice, your show so far with Courtney, how has it been received in the general public?
I think it's actually been received quite well, largely because lots of people are familiar with her. Hardly anyone knows who I am. But so when she promotes that we're doing this show, Lots of people really like and admire her because she's a writer also on Pathos. And so, yeah, a lot of people tune in. I heard at one point we were ranked number 8 or something in parenting podcasts in Costa Rica. I've never even been to
Wow.
Costa Rica. I think a field trip is in order. We got to give our fans what they want.
Yeah. Do a live show. Yeah, that'd be great.
Makes
Live
sense
from
to me.
Costa Rica, it's the Godless
Yeah.
Moms.
Of course,
Yeah.
we do get we do get folks coming in trying to proselytize us. So Neil, the 604 atheist, helps us out sometimes, trying to keep out some of those folks that we do call trolls, and that can be difficult. I know what it's like to come from a fundamentalist background and earnestly believe that everybody needs to be saved. And the best thing I could do is try and bring them into the fold and teach them how to be saved. But you know what? That's super obnoxious and annoying for people who have no interest in being part of your fold. Thank you very much.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree. But the problem is, like you said, the intention behind the person trying to do that. They're trying to quote unquote save you, so they're doing it out of a position of love in a way. So when we kind of reject that offer, in their mind, it just goes, well, what are you doing? You know, it's like you're in a house fire. I'm trying to give you a ladder to climb out of it, and you don't want to.
Yeah, it's
don't
so
understand.
difficult because they can't see it any other way. I have the benefit of seeing it from both sides because I've been in that situation. I've tried very hard to influence and save other people, and only now do I realize completely unnecessary. We don't need saving. But there was a time when I sure.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. There's also another thing that you. I don't want to move. Let's make a note here. Sorry, I'm gonna edit that part here.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost a little bit of the feed. But
Yeah.
that's okay. Looks like we're back
So,
now.
Courtney's well known for starting the Godless Mom, and you join in there. What are you guys bring on a lot of guests on your show once in a while, or you bring you just have a lot of interviews with other mothers or other parents?
It's mainly Courtney and I discussing parenting topics or sometimes pertinent things in the news. We've only had one guest so far, and it was Carl Sagan's daughter, Sasha Sagan.
Oh.
So I gotta say, it's a pretty great first guest for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy
Of course,
shit.
I wasn't allowed to watch or read Carl Sagan, but Courtney really just admired him greatly, and we were delighted to have Sasha on.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome.
There should be guests on our show too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how come we haven't been
Send
invited
us
on your
her info.
But if you
Yeah.
guys could bring on somebody that has a special significance to you, who would you bring? I mean, besides
Yes. We have also considered, and probably will in the future, bringing on some First Nations guests. They, a lot of them, of course, if raised in residential schooling or even after residential schooling, the culture and the family system was so decimated by that. And of course, the church was largely behind all that. And so I also do a webinar series with some First Nations counselors called Journey to Understanding.ca. That's the name of the website. And we put together these webinars to just try and help non-Indigenous people learn to become better allies to our Indigenous neighbors here in Canada. And that's interesting as well. And Courtney has a real concern and passion for those First Nation Canadian issues as well. So we might look at doing some of that in the future too.
yeah, and it must be particularly difficult for First Nations because there's so little of their culture left, and a lot of what's left around their culture centers around their Indigenous faith. So it must be really difficult for them to separate, the faith from the culture and try to teach. I mean, you can teach, ancient skills that they used to use, but
Right.
the stories is what they have, and the stories are really centered around their faith, their Indigenous faith.
Well, it has, what I find is that, so Catholic Church, I mean, other churches were involved, Anglican, Presbyterian as well. But the Catholic Church really is the one that just was so focused on stamping out any Indigenous culture at all and making them become Catholic. And there is like that Stockholm syndrome. Dr. Janja Lalich calls it bounded choice. So it's really not much of a choice, and you're kind of trauma bonded to your abuser. And so there are a lot of First Nations people and Inuit and Métis people in Canada who retain a Catholic faith that was forced onto them. And so actually at the conference on religious trauma, which is coming up in April, I'm having some speakers, a Native American speaker and a First Nations Canadian speaker, talking about some of that, the role that the church has played in cultural genocide in their groups.
Wow. And where's this event happening?
The conference on religious trauma is going to be online again. Last year was our first one, and it was a smashing success. So this one will be April 29th to May 1st online. And people can buy tickets at religiostraumaconference.org.
April 29th,
Awesome.
May 1st.
Get that in the show notes, Sabrina.
It's already there.
Oh, thank you.
And you organized that?
Conference.org. I got it.
Yes, I did organize it. So when I went back to school, so I divorced religion, divorced my husband, went back to school to get my counseling designation, and then started becoming active on Twitter, talking about religion and religious trauma, and connected with Dr. Marlene Winnell. And she has a very important book called Leaving the Fold, which is really helpful for anyone coming out of a fundamentalist background. And when I connected with Marlene, I started to recognize the pervasiveness of religious trauma around the world, and just the fact that we needed more people talking about it. We needed to raise awareness of it. And so I said, why don't I do a conference? Let's do a conference. Having never done a conference in my life made me the perfect candidate to decide I was going to put together a conference. If you ever want to put on a conference, call me and I'll talk you out of it. Yeah.
I was going to say, that is a lot of work, right?
It was so much work, and I do it all out of my own pocket. So I have, I needed to have a website built, and I have an event planner, and I do advertising, do all this stuff. I pay out of my own pocket, and then I didn't know if 30 people would be interested or 50. We had over 330 people who bought tickets to that event, and they're still buying tickets to last year's events because we recorded all the sessions, as we'll do this year, so people can still simply buy the recordings. So
that's
there's a lot of
And
interest.
we can just buy that right at
That's
your
great.
website too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Perfect.
The website.
Wow.
Yep. The website will take you to registration, and you can either get the all access pass, which means you attend the event live. You have the opportunity to interact with the speakers. It's all on Zoom. Or you can, if finances are an issue, or maybe you're in a different time zone, you can simply purchase the recordings. And there are continuing education credits that are available for mental health clinicians who attend. I'm trying to make it as big a thing as possible so that everybody can come and learn about religious trauma and find out about the recovery that's available.
That was my next
awesome.
question. Sorry, Bentley, did I interrupt you?
Oh, no, you're good. I was just saying, that's awesome.
That was my next question. My next question was, who seems to be your primary target audience that people are interested in CORT 2022? Is it the professionals? Is it the lay person? Who seems to be really purchasing these tickets?
I think it's both. It's a really good, because the conference is geared for both. Like it's anybody who is recovering from religious trauma, who wants to learn more about it, they can feel just as comfortable sitting in as the therapists who are coming. So some of it is geared specifically to some different therapy type techniques, but a lot of it is looking at what does it mean to be traumatized by religion? How does that affect people? How does it show up in different religious groups? So we've got a former Mormon speaking this year at one of our sessions, Luna Corbden, and her book is about lifting the veil of Mormon mind control. It's a really interesting. She's an interesting person, very experienced with Mormonism. I think next year I'll see if I can find someone who's left the Jehovah's Witness faith. I've got someone also who left Islam. I've got a former Amish person who will be speaking, and then lots of psychologists who are familiar with the traumas caused by religion, and they'll be addressing this as well.
Wow.
Oh, cool. So you kind of do a bit of, so you do some people that have left, the different, very heavily indoctrinated, from their religions.
Mhm.
And then you also have the experts that can tell you what's going on the, that's brilliant. Yeah, I love that.
Yes, yeah. I try and have something for everyone. Last year I did it so huge it almost was just too much because I think I had about 22 speakers. It went over 5 days, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't have to make it quite as huge. Like this year, I don't
Decide how
have to
long
like
it is.
break myself trying to put this thing together. So this year it'll just be Friday night and then Saturday and Sunday. And I think that'll be, everyone's going to get their money's worth. I try and keep the tickets somewhat reasonably priced because I want people to be able to attend. And that's another reason I'm not doing it in person. If I was doing it in person, like I originally planned before the pandemic, the costs would be twice as much as they are, because I'd have to I'd be paying for flights and accommodations for speakers and food and all that stuff. And I also like to give my speakers an honorarium just to thank them for their time. So it's way easier to do it online.
Yeah, and it's more affordable for the people attending too, because they don't have to buy plane tickets and hotels and all that. So it's a more affordable all around.
Yeah.
That's great.
So what are some of the names that are attending CORT 2022 this year?
Dr. Marlene Winnell will be a speaker again, and so will Daryl Ray, Luna Corton, I mentioned her. Elam Zook is our former Amish person. We've got Dr. Caleb Lack, David Teachout, Dr. Stephen Davidson. A lot of people who they've written books, or they're professors, psychology professors at universities, as well as having, being therapists in their own right. And they have come out of religious backgrounds, and they work specifically with this demographic. And then we'll have some frank discussions around sexuality and relationships as well, because I find a lot of folks, if they were raised religious and then they married probably quite young, and then they are no longer religious, and everything comes into question. Everything, sexuality and this. What about this marriage? Do we want to open this marriage? Do we want to stay married? Like, everything is up for grabs because it's such a jarring and tremendous paradigm shift.
Interesting. Well, why is it that, in your opinion, people don't seem to understand or officially acknowledge religious trauma yet? Even the professionals, what do you think that is? I mean, you can go and see a show on Oprah Winfrey about the traumas of sexual, how to call it, the sexual addicts, which is not even a thing.
Right.
But religious trauma is a thing, but yet it's not acknowledged by the public. Why is that?
Yeah, Daryl Ray, Dr. Ray, who is the founder of recoveringfromreligion.org, Daryl spoke at length last year about that exact problem, why religious trauma is not acknowledged in the psychological community. And I think it has to do with being just a sacred cow. People hate to say anything bad about religion, and they even worry it might affect their business, particularly in America. It's not quite so. Canada doesn't seem quite as saturated as the United States with all religious nonsense. But in the States, it can really be hard on businesses if people say that they are atheist and so I think that can affect some therapists as well. I did take out an ad this year for the first time. It won't come out until March, but I took out an ad in Psychology Today about the conference on religious trauma. it cost me like $1,000 to do it. So I'm very nervous. I hope that some people see it and will attend as a result of that. But yeah, we'll see. People are starting to talk about it more because more and more people, thankfully, are leaving religion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, for you, for our American friends, $1,000 Canadian, that's about $200 US.
Oh yeah, right.
Wow.
I knew it. See?
Not these days. Let's be real now.
Kevin's really good at math.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fast math right
Were
there.
you homeschooled? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
Oh God. So what's in the future you figure for religious trauma? Where do you see this conference going? I mean, so far you guys seem to be off to a great start, and you seem to be building a lot of interest. Hopefully the ball keeps rolling that way. But what future plans do we have? Can we expect from CORT?
I would like just to see it growing, really growing exponentially year after year, and I would like some of the bigger and well-known TV stations and programs to start focusing on it. So I have been approached by a reporter for NPR in the United States, and she would like to attend both my conferences and then do some related writing. Yeah, I hope that the secular world really starts opening up and embracing the fact that a lot of people are traumatized by religion, and it impacts people in just insidious ways. People who have been raised in fundamentalist religious homes share a ton of symptoms with people who have been raised in alcoholic homes. So adult children of alcoholics have a huge amount of crossover for symptoms with people I like to call acorns, adult children of religious nuts. There's a lot of crossover there.
Oh, that's so interesting. I was actually going to ask because, yeah, I'd love at some point to try to start some sort of secular sobriety type of,
Yep.
organization or something.
Mhm.
And, I was wondering, do you get a lot of like people coming out of religion that kind of, because of the trauma, they try to self-medicate
Yeah.
and go
Yes.
through? Okay. See,
Excellent question. And so not only do people tend to try and self-medicate with substances and behaviors, but often they'll do what is known as cult hopping, or they'll jump from one group to another to another. They're doing what feels familiar. They're doing what feels safe. And it's, they're trying to mitigate the pain and disruption that they feel from having left that group. I do recommend for my clients who are dealing with addiction and sobriety type issues, I recommend they go to smartrecovery.org. And then also there actually are some atheist and agnostic branches of AA. Because some people really, they like that 12-step thing, but a lot of folks who have left religion don't want anything to do with 12-step because they don't even want to talk about a higher power, think about a higher power, God, in any way. So I'm appreciative that you're looking at doing some kind of secular sobriety. That's an area we could use more help in.
I had no
Yeah.
idea there was such a thing as atheist AA because
yeah.
AA has a tremendous record of not being as good as nowhere near as good as they think they are.
Yeah.
And it is really essentially, another form of indoctrination.
Yes. Yeah.
you-
And I do actually look at religion often as a form of addiction, as an addiction. And that, of course, speaks to why there is such crossover between adult children of alcoholics and those of us who grew up in fundy homes.
Okay.
So-
Yeah. See, because I was thinking like, I felt like a lot of it, because I ended up going through a lot of drug type stuff once I came out of
Mhm.
religion. I was still a Christian, but I was just, didn't want to deal with the church anymore. But I found like trying to relate to people was very difficult when you've been homeschooled and you just don't feel like you understand people because
I know.
it's just such a different world.
Yes.
So I was just, so you see that kind of a lot. And
Oh, yeah. And actually, that is another issue we're going to be tackling at CORT this year. I'm going to have a panel of speakers talking about the pitfalls and dangers of religious schooling, both homeschooling and, attending a religious school for their education. And that, I think that panel is going to be about 90 minutes long. And I have a former Orthodox Jewish person, a former Amish person, a former homeschooled, quiverful type of person who was homeschooled all the way, and then a fellow who runs a group in the United States trying to bring about safety and regulations for homeschool groups and families, because people are going to keep homeschooling, and people homeschool for many reasons. It's not just religious folks, of course, who do it, but when people do it for religious reasons, the educational aspect of it can tend to fall by the wayside, because just the indoctrination portion of it is really emphasized.
Yeah, it was like the whole all of the science was just why science it doesn't work,
Yeah.
like why all the all the scientists are lying, like it's like
And
an
don't
entire
have
subject.
sex. Yes, exactly. And there's no education around sex, just a lot of abstinence, if that even comes up at all. So
Yeah, no, none at all. That's true. But
mhm.
wow.
Do you feel that we live in an age now where, politically speaking, there is kind of like a backlash against anything that's intellectual? Now, your
Mhm.
conference is kind of geared towards, academia and people that want to learn more about science and the science of psychology. Has there been some kind of backlash towards your conference as well? Have you run into?
No, the only people who have issues with my conference are the religious people, and that nowhere is that more apparent than on Facebook. Whenever I run an ad campaign promoting the conference on religious trauma, bam, I get totally slammed by fundamentalists who it is impossible for them to just let my ad go, just scroll by, just keep scrolling, because it's not for them. They have to get on there and tell me how I'm taking people to hell, I'm in league with the devil, I'm preaching the doctrine of devils, I'm whatever it is that they think is going on. Sometimes it's actually humorous because it's so weird, but it always is. It makes me sad too, because I see they're so firmly entrenched. Their minds are completely controlled by how they've been indoctrinated, and it's makes things harder for everybody. You can't, if you're dyed in the wool fundy, you can't have a deep relationship with your kids if they have rejected your religion. Your relationship immediately becomes very surface level, if at all. Some will cut their kids off entirely for rejecting the religion.
Have you met the devil? Because I'm pretty sure he's hot.
Well, I've seen some videos that made me think, yeah, you're right.
But if you are, we can also send you that address for that. Send a bag of dicks to these people. Pass your ad.
Just get them to post to their address.
Oh my gosh.
God, I had a train of thought here that I just lost.
Well, I could tell you about my other conference that's coming up in October.
That's where I was heading.
Yeah. All right. So in April, I just told you we're doing the conference on religious trauma. In October, because I decided I was not quite busy enough and I must really love hosting conferences, I'm going to be hosting the inaugural Shameless Sexuality, Life After Purity Culture Conference. And this is open to anyone who has been indoctrinated by purity culture. I hope it goes even bigger than CORT. I see that there is such a massive need for people to receive accurate education about sex and sexuality and sexual attraction and types of genders and everything else, that whole thing, that particularly for those of us raised in a really insular environment, we just didn't receive adequate teaching about it, and we want to normalize it, and we want people to know that however you are is fine. It's fine. You're fine. And so I have sex therapists who will be speaking, and a number of psychologists also with backgrounds in religious trauma and the damage caused by purity culture. I'll have people who have opened up their marriages or transitioned out from a monogamous relationship to poly relationships, just talking about all these different things, bringing it all to the light of day for people to learn and find community, and hopefully it'll just be a marvelous time. I'm really looking forward to it.
Openly
I could
talking
say
about
I'm
sex.
excited, but excited about my own conference on sexuality.
We don't openly talk about sex in the States, okay? This is just
It's
not a
taboo-
thing we
taboo
do.
subject in the States.
I'm gonna say just the fact.
Puritans,
And this
Yeah,
this conference is online as well, I'm assuming.
It is, yes. I think a lot of Americans must have to watch Canadian porn because anything goes in Canada. We're not nearly as repressed as a lot
okay,
of.
now I'm curious. So,
Right, so-
Canadian
That's
porn,
something
is
I
there
find
like a
funny.
specific name? Do I do like maple leaf porn? What do I do?
Fever,
Yes,
fever,
maple,
yeah,
of
I
course.
don't know.
That's one thing I find funny
Maple
about the
syrup.
United States is that we
Uh-huh.
have such puritanical values. However, if you look at porn and stuff, it's all over the place with the like all over the map with the stuff, and it's looking at it and it's like we're really, really like ah sorry.
And
This is what
porn
the-
usually comes out with some kind of a map to the United States and where
Oh,
each,
yeah.
Oh, God,
each
yes.
state what their biggest searches are.
Oh
And you
yeah.
realize in the Christian South,
Bible Belt.
heading towards Florida, towards Brentley, it gets more twisted and twisted every time. It's like,
Yeah, Minnesota's too cold for anything like that. For us, a parka is lingerie.
The Bible Belt's more creative sexually than you think. And it's like we're not allowed to look at any of it, so it all goes on up here. And
Yeah,
it's,
yes.
If you
it's
want to
something.
see something interesting, look up Mormon porn or bubble porn, where
Bubble
essentially
Bubble porn.
they use like Photoshop where they put something over them so it like covers all of the parts you're not supposed to see, but of course
So,
then
like-
you get the insinuation of it.
Wow.
So like Japanese hentai?
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yes,
say the blurred like cartoon.
It is. It refers to the bubble collage like they do in Japan.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just
Oh,
googled
no.
and that's flipping hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, they don't
even
really do
even
that,
the
do they?
topic of porn itself can be very problematic for people who grew up fundamentalists, even once they leave, because they do think that someone could be addicted to porn, or that's the worst thing, or it's their partner's being unfaithful if they're viewing pornography. So there's a lot of discussion and listening and educating and validating that needs to go on between the therapist and the client. And I'm hoping that the Shameless Sexuality Conference will normalize sex in all its different forms and discussions around sex. We're adults. We are
Yeah.
allowed to talk about these things and allowed to enjoy sex. And we certainly want our young people to learn about how they can have sex and enjoy sex and not reproduce if they don't want to reproduce or aren't ready to do that. And so abstinence, it's just the name for those who follow abstinence is parents. It's the same with people who use condoms. The name for them is parents, because they're going to have kids.
Yep, that's it.
Right.
Yep.
and you were saying that Canada is much more loose when it comes to porn as compared to US, but even Canada is much more
Reserved.
prudish than in places like Europe. It's like this is like taught wide open. To
Yeah,
kids.
they got exposed breast on TV after 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Exactly.
After 8.
Wow. What
that's
channel
the
is that?
cutoff.
I'll do
Okay.
some research. Yeah.
Have you ever seen half of the commercials that even come out of Europe? Like, there's some pretty racy commercials.
I remember this time I was dating this American woman, and she came up here for a visit, and we're watching TV, and there happens to play a Trojan condom commercial,
Oh.
and she stopped and she grabbed me, she looked at me, and said, "They can play this?"
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just nothing going on. It's just a condom commercial. You have this couple going to the cashier, like, "Oh, we're really excited about trying this thing or whatever."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So it was, and she was like totally, oh my god, I can't believe they play this on TV here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, welcome to reality.
And
This
I mean,
reminds me,
oh, yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
so-
I used to work at this gas station, and this couple came up with these condoms, right? And they were the Snug Fit condoms, and he like embarrassingly slides them to me, and she goes, "Yeah, those are the ones he needs." And I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Like,
I don't need to know this.
like, is this part of your shaming? Am I like part of your kink right now? Because I think I need some consent. Because
Oh, Jesus.
That's so terrible. Well, I was thinking that it makes sense that in Europe they are much more open and really adult about topics like sex and also about topics like drinking and drug use
Yes.
because they are much farther removed from the religion
Yes.
than we are over here in North America. An interesting thing I've been doing is tracking where visitors are visiting my websites from. So for both of the conferences, and it's been incredible for the conference on religious trauma. I have had visitors from China, from the Congo. I had one from Saudi Arabia the other day. I thought that was pretty impressive. And of course, all over the United States, Malaysia, Europe, not as many in Europe. Certainly most of them are from the United States and some from Canada as well. But I'm very thrilled that people around the world are finding out about this conference.
Wow,
Oh,
that's pretty
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
And as a promotion, if you sign up now for the conference on sex in October, you get a free bag of penis pasta by Janice. You heard it. No, no, just kidding, guys.
Don't listen to him.
But we can give your viewers a code for a $20 discount off their tickets. And they can apply that to the conference on religion and to the shameless sexuality conference. Or if they want to buy all event access, like all access passes to both of those events, if they buy them together, they get a $50 discount off those.
Sure.
Sweet.
Whoa.
That would be great.
That's a pretty sweet deal.
Hell yeah.
All right, so let's reiterate those names for the court and the
Shameless sexuality.
shameless sexuality.
Yeah, you've got the religiostraumaconference.org, and
.org.
that's why for
Yeah, and the other one's shamelesssexuality.org.
There we go. Perfect.
And then were you going to put in the discount code, or should I just say that right out of my mouth?
Yes.
Right now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Also
Let's
put it
give
in.
it to as many as
Okay.
possible.
All right. When you are typing in your registration and you want to buy your tickets, you can type in the code podcast20, and that will give you a $20 American discount on the ticket.
Discount.
$20.
I can remember that one. That's easy.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be
Podcast
something complicated like QRT9394969.
Up,
No,
down, down, left, left.
Podcast 20.
Podcast.
Yeah, I think it's a capital P, and then the rest is lowercase.
Perfect.
So there's no penis pasta that goes along with that. Just the
Yeah.
You have
podcast
to
20.
buy your own
$20
penis
discount's
pasta.
still good.
Yeah.
You can use the $20 that you save to go buy your penis pasta.
I like
That's
the way
it.
you think.
Now we're thinking.
Now we're thinking like pros.
I was gonna say, I think you can get a fair amount of penis pasta for $20.
Probably.
Yeah.
How much does
Maybe some
penis
chocolate.
pasta cost?
I
It
don't-
costs more in Canada.
We'll have to find out. We'll have to find out. Janice, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. It's always a pleasure to have you on
Yeah.
here. If people want to find out more about you and Godless Moms, where can they find you?
People can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Divorce Religion, and I'm also at wise_counselor. And Courtney is on there as at Godless Mom. And my website for my counseling and consulting work that I do is called divorcing-religion.com.
Fantastic.
Right on.
Janice,
Oh,
like I said,
This was so much fun.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, dear. Before I let you go, I gotta have you say, hi, this is Janice Selbie of Court 2022, and I took a left of the valley.
I hope I can remember all that.
Whichever way you want. It's not
He
like-
says
Okay.
so much.
Okay, here we go. Hi, this is Janice Selbie of Court 2022, and I took a left at the valley.
Ooh, very well.
Woohoo.
Yay!
It's one of the best ones I've
And
heard.
we are
Yeah.
back. And that was our friend Janice Selbie talking about CORT 2022 and conference like Shameless Sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
She's always fun to be on. I love her. I
Oh,
love her.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
she's always fun guests. Yes.
It's kind of a shame her partner Courtney couldn't join us. I would love to have her as well.
But I don't know that Courtney would know much about the two conferences that Janice
doesn't
is
matter. I
hosting,
mean-
so it's kind of it worked out.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's always fun to have always a couple of female guests on
Mhm.
the show. So go check out these sites, guys.
Yeah.
CORT2022.org.
It's journeytounderstanding.ca is one of the websites she mentioned. She also mentioned religiostraumaconference.org, shamelesssexuality.org, and also her personal counseling site, divorcing-religion.com.
Excellent.
There you go.
Perfect.
Excellent.
There they are.
Do it.
Anything
And
else you need to
podcast
add?
20 is the
Yeah,
Yes.
podcast 20
Yes.
for
It may or may
$20.
not be a capital P. I'm
Yeah.
sure you can figure it out.
Try
Try
it.
it.
You can try both.
Save yourself $20 US.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Janice Selbie, for being our guest on the show, and thank you to my co-hosts Sabrina, Benjamin, Brentley, and Hertzy, and thank you for listening. You can follow us at leftatvalley.ca. You can follow us, send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. You can send us a Twitter at LATV Podcast. You go to Facebook, YouTube. You can just do slash
Instagram.
slash
Left at the
Left of the
Valley.
Valley. What else am I missing? Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It helps us. It helps others find the show. And you can become a patron now too. Patron too. Go to patreon.com/LATV and help us grow the show. All right, Brad Lee, what do you got coming up, bud?
All right, yeah. So I'd unapologetics panel stream every Wednesday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just search in the search bar of YouTube unapologetics. spelled with
Subscribe
an
so
X.
that we can do a slash there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need
subscribe.
like 20 more subscribers
Oh,
or
that's it.
something.
Well, come on.
Or
Go and
30.
subscribe. Help us out here so that we can do youtube.com/unapologetics.
Yes, exactly.
That's the dream.
Perfect. Coming up next week, we'll have Ian Harris. That should be fun. And after that, we'll have Nick Fish as well the next week before. After that, I should say. And in March, we'll have David Fitzgerald. We'll be talking about Mormons. And of course, we'll have our friend Dr. Ben Davis. We'll be talking about documentaries as well. We'll have Valerie Tarico. We'll be talking about wokeness. And we'll also have Gerald Posner talking about God's bankers.
Interesting.
We've got lots of. Oh, and also we have Kathleen and Aubrey, an atheist and a Christian. They're podcasters, and that's coming in April. So
Oh,
we
nice.
got lots of
Okay.
things coming on the pipe already.
So what you're saying is that this podcast can be around for a while.
Well, I hope so.
Good.
Although I might kick you off it.
Okay. Bye.
Wow.
Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Let's go. Okay. Don't leave us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to get the oh, yeah. All right, fine.
No.
Next time. Bye.
I have a story real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
How dare
Go
you.
for
So
it.
I worked at an adult store for about 6 months or so when I was late 20s. It was awesome. Anyways, I remember this. We had a rule, of course, nobody under 18 can come in. Great. Now, if somebody brought in like a 2-year-old, I wasn't going to, that's like, fine, they're not going to remember this. And somebody brought in like it was a 2 or 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And the kid was a little upset. And she went over to our candy machine, which had little candy penises. Cranked it. And she's like, he's not going to know.
I love it.
That was one of the best days.
Stick with a handful of dick.
Did it make everything better?
He did calm down a little bit after that because I mean, candy's candy.
Yeah,
Right.
makes it better for me.
He just the day keeps the doctor away.
That's right.
Okay. Let's
Okay,
start
see,
the show.
I have to stop this recording now. I have to start a new one because of that story. So-
It's perfect.
Do you?
First. Yeah, exactly. Do you?
All right, perfect. Let's do this. Okay, recording in 3, 2, 1.